Now we are continuing with our class. In the previous session, we have discussed about hypothesis. And in the hypothesis, we have learned that sometimes the hypotheses are formulated based on the theories. Theories have a great role to play. But again, we have to remember that the theories are the important aspect of any research, and that gives the scientific background for our research. And these theories are needed for all scientific research. So we have to apply some theory that is already developed into our research studies. And the theories are basically the aggregate of concepts. Theories are formulated from concepts. Now take for example, if the theory is a huge building, concepts are the bricks. So when we add all the bricks together, that becomes a house or a building. So theory is similar to a building and the concepts are bricks. So what is a concept? Concept is the mental image associated with the word or object that is developed with empirical knowledge, which give a real meaning and identity for the word or object. Now take for example, when we hear a term, we suddenly get a mental image associated with that word. For example, if I am saying in the class elephant, immediately in your mind the name, the picture of elephant will come. That is a concept. If you have not seen an elephant, that's simply a word, it is not a concept. So that is why in LKG classes, the teacher teach our alphabet with the pictures. They say teaching A, they will say that there is a line like upward line, downward line, and a connecting line. There are 3 lines are there. So the shape is like this. So whenever the child hear the word A, immediately that mental image will come. Then only that will become a concept. Otherwise, that is not at all a concept, is merely a word, and the people have no idea about that. So concept is the mental image associated with the word or an object that is developed with the empirical knowledge. As I mentioned, empirical knowledge is that we are gaining with our 5 senses, which gives a real meaning and identity for the word or object. Any word with the mental image associated with that becomes a concept. Now when we put lot of concepts together and put lot of relationship between these concepts, that becomes a theory that should be tested in research. In the theory, if you want to say that this is a theory, that should be tested by conducting research. So that is one aspect of research, testing theories. And finally, the result is good. We fragment and hypothesis, we test hypothesis, and we say that the theory is right or wrong. At the same time, another aspect of research is, in our researches, we formulate a theoretical framework for our research. For that, we should learn about what is a theory. Theory is a systematic, abstract explanation of some aspect of reality that explain, control, and predict a phenomenon. That is a theory. So it is a systematic one. It is an abstract one. It is not concrete. The meaning vary from one situation to another situation, one place to another place, one person to another person. That is abstract. So it's an abstract one that explain some aspect of reality. For example, there are theories associated with economics, physics, chemistry, associated with nursing, medicine, etc. So that is some form of reality that try to explain that phenomena, try to control that phenomena, try to predict a phenomena. That is why in the research initial classes we have seen that research also have tried to explain, try to control and try to predict, because we are formulating theories by conducting research. So that is a relationship between theory and research. So it's a systematic abstract explanation of some aspect of reality that explain, control and predict phenomena. Now we have to remember, what we have to remember is that in small research studies, all the research studies are not trying to find out theories. But at the same time, research is a scientific work. In order to make research scientific, we need the application of theory. So there are so many theories were developed by theorists. For example, Florence Nightingale has developed environmental theory. There is interpersonal relationship theory is there. Systems theory is there. So many nursing personnel have developed theories of nursing. And there are a lot of other theories developed by psychologists, sociologists, behavioral scientists, and the medical theories are there. So we can adopt any of these theories from nursing or outside nursing, which is suitable for our study, and we can explain our study with the help of those theories also. So that is important for any research work. So for that we have to develop conceptual framework and theoretical framework. So we should know about what is a framework means, what is a conceptual framework, and what is a theoretical framework. The framework, the dictionary meaning is that is a basic structure that hold together. It's a basic structure that hold everything together. That is a framework. For example, we know that human body consists of the skeletal system, isn't it? And into the skeletal system only all the flesh, organs, tendons, everything is attached. So the skeletal system acts as a framework, isn't it? So similarly, theory also built on a skeletal system. Okay, so this is a framework, is a basic structure that holds together. That is a dictionary meaning of a framework. Now, what is a conceptual framework? So when all the concepts are added into a frame, that becomes a conceptual framework, because concept will not hold in the vacuum, will not exist in the vacuum. So we have to fit the concept into some framework. So then that becomes a conceptual framework. So conceptual framework is a broad, logical and general explanation of relationship between the concept in a research study. Conceptual framework is constructed by the researcher based on their experience, literature reviewed, creativity, logical thinking and reasoning. And these things are needed not only for conceptual framework but formulating research question, research objectives, hypothesis, also the experience, literature review, creativity, logical thinking and reasonings are needed. And the conceptual framework also. So it is a broad, logical a general explanation of relationship between the concept in a research study. So when we put a relationship is put by some of this is the explanations. This is not the pictorial form. We explain. So this is a relationship between these two variables. And this not only simple explanation but is a broad explanation. And this explanation should be logical also. There should be a general explanation about the relationship between the concepts in a research study. We call as a conceptual framework. Now there is another framework called a theoretical framework. So this is the broad, logical and general explanation of relationship between the concepts based on an existing theory. These two things there are some differences are there. One is a simple explanation. We put our concept into a framework. For example, in several boxes and we say that these are the relationship. That is a conceptual framework. And when we try to explain the conceptual framework based on an existing theory, for example, there is an input-output process. Input, process, output. So these are the input. If I am saying that I am giving a good education for all the BSc nursing students in the college. So there are good teachers, a good library, good infrastructure, good hospital facilities. These are the inputs. And there are a lot of processing are there, like theory classes, practical classes, value education classes. So there are a lot of other extracurricular activities. So many things are the processing. Finally, the output is the quality of graduates, their skill, their attitude, their practice, their values, all those things are the output. So I'm explaining that using a theoretical framework. Using an existing theory, this is called the system theory. Okay, so any study, research study, our concepts are put into the existing theory and we explain that using an existing theory, that becomes a theoretical framework. So it is a broad, logical and general explanation of relationship between the concepts based on existing theory. Different concepts of the research are put into the frame of an existing theory, as I explained. And there are a lot of theories are there. There are thousands of theories are there. So we need an orientation between all the theories in nursing and theories outside nursing. Then only we can choose a very appropriate theory for our study and we can develop a theory for our study. Now, next is a model. What is a model? Model, the dictionary meaning is that is a small copy or symbolic representation. The previous two are the explanations. The framework, the conceptual framework and theoretical framework are the explanations. But when we graphically represent or pictorially represent, that becomes a model. It's a small copy or symbolic representation. That becomes the model. For example, now if when we call a person as a model of some dress, where that person wear the dress and give the picture, it shows that this is good. So this dress, this brand is good. So that becomes a model. It's a small copy or symbolic representation. Now, what is a conceptual model is a diagrammatic or schematic representation of relationship between the concept in a research study. As I mentioned before, we put a lot of boxes or rounds, etc. and we put our concept inside a round or different boxes and we give connections using arrows, straight arrows, dotted arrows, sometimes some other pictorial representations, relations, etc. So that becomes a model. It's a diagrammatic or schematic representation of relationship between the concepts in a research study. So it is a symbolic representation of an integrated set of concepts which has a meaningful configuration. The purpose of a conceptual model is to minimize the use of words and for easy understanding about the relationship between the concepts. So the framework you have to explain in pages. This is a broad explanation. Whereas the model, conceptual model, we can reduce the wording into a simple one page or a half a page. We can give a picture. Once you look at the picture, we are able to see what are the different concepts are studied, what are the different type of relationship is studied, and based on which theory you have formulated that, you have to give a footnote also. This is adopted from this particular theory developed by this person in this particular year. So the whole details are there in the single page. So this becomes a conceptual model. But we have to remember that this is not a simple thing. We have to select an appropriate theory. We have to carefully put the concept. We should not miss anything. We have to avoid unnecessary things and put the correct type of relationship. Where to put all those things, this is a very important, very complex activity. This need imagination, need observation, need skill, need guidance. There are so many aspects there for formulating a conceptual model. Now, what is the purpose of a conceptual framework in a research study? So it is a building block of a research study, as I mentioned before. And we are making all the research based on the conceptual framework. If we have formulated a conceptual framework, it's a building block of a research study. Again, the conceptual framework is used to explain, control and predict findings because it is formulated based on a theory. So it used to explain, control and predict our findings. And it holds together all the concept in a study. As I mentioned before, it is a skeletal system to which the whole flesh is added, because we know that the skeletal system is that thing will hold everything together. If it a break occur for the skeletal system, the whole functions, the look, function, everything is altered. So that is very important. Which is holding the framework is very important in a research study also. So it holds together all the concepts in the study. Again, the conceptual framework protect and safeguard the concept. For example, you are walking through, you are coming from medical college to nursing college, 3 persons, only one umbrella. There's heavy rain or a sunshine, very hot day. So you are holding an umbrella, only one umbrella is there. So all 3 persons stand together by holding your hands together and hold the umbrella. So that umbrella will protect you from the rain or hot sun. So similarly, the conceptual framework will protect and safeguard all the concepts. We are putting all the concepts together under an umbrella. So this is conceptual framework. Again, it gives more aesthetic appearance for a study. For example, the bricks will not give much appearance, but once become the building, that gives a more aesthetic appearance. And again, we know that the shape of the building may vary. The size of the building will vary. So that depends on the ability of the architecture and their aptitude, their experience. Similarly, the experience of the researcher also make your study more good, more wide, more scientific, etc. So it gives more aesthetic appearance for the study. And again, we know that once the framework is there, even though you are not having much experience, you are just fixing that into the framework. That will protect us, that will help us to formulate, isn't it? So conceptual framework is a more aesthetic appearance for the study. It helps the researcher to organize and associate findings into broader concept, as I mentioned. So this is the framework. So we can organize and associate our findings into broader concept because a framework is there. It helps in generating hypotheses of the study. So many hypotheses also can be generated because we have, while fixing only, we will find out or we will get what type of relationship existing these variables, or how I can establish the relationship between these different variables. So it helps in generating hypothesis. It helps to motivate research activities, and many times it motivates us to do research, to do different type of data collection, to think about many analytic techniques, and also to use maximum of our data, the minimum data with the maximum usage. Then the next function is to guide for planning, implementation and evaluation of research activities. This will give as a guidance. Conceptual framework will guide us for different planning, more planning, vivid planning and implementation of all these plans, and for evaluation of the research activities and to conclude our research to get more meaningful findings. The conceptual framework helps us. Finally, it increases scientific nature of the study, make research findings meaningful and generalizable. So that ultimately we want to generalize our findings, and the conceptual framework will help us to generalize our findings. So these are the purpose of conceptual framework in a research study. There are several steps in developing a conceptual framework. The first step is select and define concepts. This is the first step. We have to select what are the concepts in our study, and we have to try to operationally define our concepts. So once we formulate a research question and formulate hypothesis, objectives and hypothesis, we know what are the different concepts. And all this concept we have to define operationally. All the terms in the question, research question or research statement and objectives we have to define. So select and define all the concept. That is the first step. And the second step is identify and state the relationship between the concept. That is a hypothesis. What type of relationship is existing between these variables? Identify that and state in the form of propositions. Then the third is use inductive or deductive reasoning. As I mentioned, either from general things to specific observation or specific observation to general statement. Then select a suitable theory or theories. You can use a theory in nursing, theory of nursing, and or more than one theories also we can choose. Then develop a logical construct. Then you have to evaluate. After constructing, it evaluates whether this is right, whether anything is missed, any aspect is there. And evaluation is usually done with the help of more experienced persons. Then you revise that. Then finally, you have to develop your conceptual framework. So these are the steps in developing conceptual framework. I repeat the step once more. Select and define concept. Identify and state the relationship between the concepts. Use inductive or deductive reasoning. Select suitable theory or theories. Develop a logical construct. Evaluate, revise and develop conceptual framework. So this is an example of a conceptual framework, how to formulate a conceptual framework. So in a study, the title of the study is to identify the effect of self-instructional module in changing the knowledge about the nutritional problems among school-going girls in the selected schools. This is the title of the study. So we have developed a research question. From that, we have developed this title: identify the effect of a self-instructional module. We just want to see the effect of. We have developed the instructional module, teaching module, and see what is the effect of that in changing the knowledge about the nutrition problems among the school-going children. As we have identified that among all the school-going children, there are nutritional problems are there. And in order to reduce the nutritional problems or increase the nutritional status of school-going girls, we have developed a teaching module. So we just want to see what is their knowledge before the intervention, and we teach them, and we want to find out what is their knowledge after the intervention. Okay, so that is our study. Then for that we are developing objective. For example, the objective is like to identify nutrition problems among school-going girls in the select school. First, we want to measure what is the existing problem, nutrition problems among school-going children. The second objective is to study the effect of self-instrument in changing the knowledge about nutrition problem. Then after that, we compare the knowledge about the nutritional problems with the selected demographic variables. Then the third step is that after writing objective, we write the operational definition of terms like what is the meaning of effect, what is self-instruction module, what do you mean by knowledge, what is mean by nutritional problems, who are the school-going girls, what is the selected schools, and which are the selected demographic variables that we have to define. After that, write assumptions and hypotheses of the study using all those criteria. Then the fifth step is a suitable theory for the study to be developed, conceptual framework. And the theory that we have selected for the study is a health belief model by Rosenstock and Beck. You'll be remembering in the first year class about the class unit 1, we have discussed about the concept of health and illness, where we have learned about the Rosenstock health belief model in the foundations of nursing. So this particular theory we are using. Now the sixth step is we have to explain about the theory and the theories. So this is a broad explanation about the different aspect of the theory. What is the Rosenstock theory? There are three important aspects is there. So all those components of that particular theory we are to explain, and explain about the theorist also, who is the theorist, when this theory was developed, etc. Then after that, the health belief model, this is explanation, is a commonly used theory in health education and health promotion. Theory is based on the assumption that for a behavioral change feel threatened by their current behavior and feel threatened by, the feel that the change will be beneficial and will be accepted course. The healthy behavior is determined by personal beliefs and perceptions. Then there are so many components are there for the health belief model, like individual perception, modifying factors, and the likelihood of action. So these are the three important aspects of that health belief model. So individual perception include perceived susceptibility and perceived seriousness. There are two things: how they are perceiving their susceptibility and how they are perceiving the seriousness of the problem. Then modifying factors are the second thing, including demographic variables and the cues to action or to overcome. What are the cues for overcoming that problem? Then likelihood of action is the third part, that is the perceived benefit and the perceived barriers. What are the benefits if I assume this? What are the barriers? How we can overcome that? Then the seventh step is to develop conceptual framework of the for the present study by putting all the variables of your study into the concept. So this is how we formulate, develop the conceptual framework for the present study. So actually, I mean, from the textbook that I'll be sending the note to you later. So this is something like the theory, the actual theory, and we put all the concept, all the research variables into that, and we have formulated the theory like this. So here we have individual perceptions, and the perceived benefits are there in our study, and the perceived severity is there in our study. Then is the modifying factors are there. Which are the modifying factors in our study, which include the demographic variables, which include the perceived threat, that is a nutrition problem, changing the body image and appearance. Then cues to action is there. Then the third factor is the likelihood of action, that is the perceived benefit as I mentioned, and the perceived barriers and the likelihood change. So I'll send the note to you so they can read and understand how we formulate this type of theoretical framework. And in bottom you have to write from who's developed this theory and which year the theory was developed, from whom that we have adopted. So that's about this particular unit, and I'll be sending the notes to you. And the conceptual framework is not very important actually for BSc students for the examination. It is usually an MSc nursing question, but because it is included in your syllabus, sometimes a question can be asked, but there is a rare chance. But hypothesis is a very important question for your examination.